All right, welcome to the Business Freedom Podcast, where we help business owners and entrepreneurs grow their business, grow their freedom, and more profitability. And today is a special day. I'm so happy to have Peter Boolkah. I hope I said that correctly with us here today. So welcome, Peter. It's good to see you.
Hey, nice to be here today, Jonathan. I was really looking forward to today's episode.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm so happy for what we have in store, just to be able to help business owners. And that's what we do here at Action Coach. And also, you are a coach and an author, and I'm so inspired to have you here today. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. But most business owners think that they need to grow their business, and they see things online or marketing pieces, books where you need to grow your business, grow your marketing, grow your sales, grow your profits. But what I've seen as I coach businesses and business owners, in reality, they need to grow themselves. They need to grow the person running the business. They need to grow, the founder needs to grow. Maybe they were really good at selling widgets, or they were really good at fixing some problem, and they said, well, I better do that on my own. But now so they started a business, right? But now, years later, maybe that's turned into a job, and they look back and say, well, what's a business about this is a full-time job that has taken over my life. And I'm sure you've worked with many business owners to get out of that. So what would you say someone can do better to be that business owner, to have the mindset shift of a business owner where they can begin to work on themselves?
First and foremost, they need to learn business. I mean, you sort of described it really eloquently. Most people they start a business. I mean, few people will start a business because they've got a genuine business idea and passion that they want to pursue. A lot of people start a business through trauma. Either they hate their boss, they've been fired from their job, made redundant, and they don't want to work for somebody again, so they start a job. They start themselves a business. Well, they call it a business. But the reality is, when you sort of go into business, it's very different from working for somebody else. And a lot of people go through your standard education system. They'll do the school, then they'll go into college, then they'll do the whole university bit, or some will anyway. And then they have education fatigue, and then they stop. And this is the biggest problem, is that when people start businesses themselves, that's when the learning start. You talk about growing yourself, you've got to learn business. If you don't learn business, you will always be the restriction in the business because the business can only ever grow to your level of incompetence.
Yeah, a lot of times I see that first kind of glass ceiling is when they've made just enough money to pay the bills. So the rent, the mortgage is paid, a certain level of employees are paid, got the vehicle that I was dreaming of, and then we just sort of plateau.
Yeah, and I call that settling. They settle because when they first start the business, obviously you want to kind of recover what you've lost. You got bills to pay, so you do your best to get to that point where you're matching your bills and everything. And a lot of people just don't dream. I mean, you think about it, spinning up a business is not easy. I mean, do you think about your previous business? It wasn't easy, was it?
Yeah.
And in the UK, we've got statistics to back this up. We've got approximately 5.4 million small to medium sized privately owned enterprises. 4.2 million of them are solopreneurs. They'll never employ anybody. So they'll always just have a job. And everyone goes into business and they love this big romance. I'm going to go into business. I'm going to have all the time in the world. So I'm going to get my time back. I'm not going to work for a bad boss. I'm going to make loads of money. And they start the business and they genuinely have a dream. It's a genuine dream. By the time you get to years 3 to 5, if you're lucky to make it to 5 years, because
Yeah.
statistically speaking, 80% of businesses do not make it to year 5. So you get to year 5. By the time you got to year 5, you're doing some things right. But the majority of business owners stop dreaming because they're absolutely exhausted from the journey. They don't want to do anymore because they think the next 5 years, if they grow their business, is going to be as traumatic as the first 5.
Yeah. How do they get into that trap, right? I mean, that trap of where they're the superhero. I got to do it. It's got to be done my way. A lot of times when I'll start talking with a new business owner, it'll be our job is so custom, and it can only be happen one day, one way, and it has to happen our way. And I've got to be the one to do it. Whether it's a mortgage broker who he thinks he's the only one who can close the deals because of the way he talks or the way he works deals, or it's a tradesman who says nobody can paint the wall how I paint the wall, right? Or do the tile how I do the tile.
Do you know what, Jonathan? We can dispel that bullshit myth in 3 minutes. Are you ready?
Ready.
So when an entrepreneur starts a business, they are by themselves, aren't they? No one's very rarely do they start with a team. So you got the entrepreneur by themselves. They're the chief decision maker, chief executioner, head of sales, head of marketing, head of accounts, head of HR if they happen to be bad to themselves, and head of everything. From day one, they are training their business to be dependent on them from day one. And you can imagine it may be 3 to 5 years before they hire their first person. They have created the habit in the business of everything revolving around them.
Mm.
So if they are lucky enough and they bring employee number one on board, all they're going to do is with same habit with the employee, come to me, come to me, come to me. And I'm sure that you saw this in the early days. No one ever taught you how to systemize and process your business when you had your first business, right?
Correct. And that was after business school.
Yeah. Well, allegedly business school.
Right.
Allegedly. I mean, our business schools are interesting. We have professors that teach business that have never run a business. It's a bit like politicians telling everybody this is the policy around business and they've never had a job apart from being in politics. It's crazy.
It's insane.
No, of course it's insane. But you think about it, the business isn't systemized. It's not processed. So, number one, an employee's coming into chaos. Now, the entrepreneur will tell you it's organized chaos. It's organized chaos within an 18-hour day because they often do work when they get home. But because there's
Hmm.
no system or process, they'll say to the employee, okay, this is what I want you to do, go and do it. So it's never been documented how the founder's done it, the expectation or anything like that. So all they've done is they've set employee number one up to fail and it's reinforced the sort of bullshit belief in founders' head that they're the only one that can do the job. And now what happens, they're now doing two jobs. They're doing their job and they're now doing the job of employee number one that they hired that isn't doing it up to their standard and they're going and compensating for them.
And a lot of times that employee number one is a family member or somebody who needs work, but has nothing to do with what my business needs.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Two arms, two legs, and genetically connected.
Man, at what point does someone stop thinking like a tradesperson or a technician and start thinking like a CEO?
99% of them probably never will. When you look at the sheer volume of businesses out there, they don't change. They survive. They say I've been in business 20 years. No, they've been in business. They've probably been in business 2 years, and then they replicated it for the next 18. And
Yeah.
that is the rubbish narrative they feed themselves. I do think that unfortunately, God's greatest gift for change is pain. And I think that people genuinely change when they're faced with a traumatic event that is too painful for them to maintain their current pathway.
I agree with that. No pain, no gain.
So it's sad, but they have to sort of screw up their lives before they're willing to do something about it.
And a lot of times that pain could be missing their kid's soccer match, even though it's at 7 p.m. because you still got to go send emails or you've got to reach this client.
Or maybe the pain is, and I've seen it so many times, that your spouse is going to divorce you
Yeah.
because they're fed up being married to your business that they never signed up for in the first place.
Yeah. Or your finances are a wreck. When you had a full-time job working for corporate, you had a steady paycheck and now all you are is in debt.
And that is common, you know that. That is so, so common.
Wow. Why do business owners do that? Why do they get themselves into that where they just create a big job for themselves?
They don't do it willingly, you see. I mean, they
Yeah.
don't do it knowingly. Is they'll go into business and they'll just get into the habit. You know, like I said earlier on, it's a habit. It's a habit of doing this, habit doing that. They don't go and sort of seek external advice. So over a period of time, to them, it's normal. Oh, this is what business is. They don't know a better way.
Yeah.
They don't have conversations with other people. Well, how can we do it better? And you know what it's like. People have egos, and therefore they don't necessarily want to open up about the fact that their business sucks. And I don't mean that horribly, but every business sucks at something. We don't have the answers, but the crime here is not seeking the answers, is accepting and settling for what you have.
Yeah, once you accept it, then you can change it. I mean, what you measure, you can improve. So you see where you're at, and then many entrepreneurs start a business for freedom, and this is called the Business Freedom Podcast. Designed to help them with freedom, and get obtain that goal that they wanted, the life that they wanted, the reason that they started. But years later, they feel trapped. So how do we shift this focus? Of course, you have the awareness first, but how do we shift it? How do we reverse that? And what have you seen?
People want freedom. Freedom equals time. You can only buy time back, which means to buy time back, you need to have employees that work for you. So if you're a solopreneur, especially trades, they're the worst at this. You can never expect freedom, or the way you express freedom quite possibly could be, well, I'm not going to work this week or next week. I'm going to take time off. The problem with that is, as soon as you stop pedaling on the wheel, the revenue starts to drop. So it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. So you've got to hire people. But if you hire people into chaos, you're not going to keep them, and your organization is going to scale through trauma. You can't scale through chaos. Sorry. So really what you've got to start thinking is, what does freedom look like? What does my business need to look like to give me the freedom I want? And instead of you serving your business, it's actually, well, what do I do to structure my business so that the business serves me? And now that's a really difficult question. And most people will never be able to do that on their own. They're going to need some outside intervention to help them map it, structure it, and help bring that to life. Otherwise, guess what? It's never going to happen. And on top of that, if you really want that, that all costs money. So you've got to be able to drive revenue in your business to be able to cover all those costs. So it's
Hmm.
not as easy as people think.
Yeah, yeah,
Hence why people are trapped.
yeah. It takes taking action and doing something about it, taking accountability, um, and stepping into that role. If two business owners had the same exact company, Peter, the same employees and the same opportunities, one on the right, one on the left, but one grew to $10 million business and the other stayed at 1 million, what would be the differences that you would call out of those two owners?
The one at 1 million sucks. And I don't mean it horribly. Look, when you're running a $10 million business, you've had to do the work to become a $10 million a year CEO. So you've had to do that development. You've had to do that personal development in yourself. You've had to learn a lot of new skills, leadership skills, structuring the business skills, tons of new stuff. Because otherwise, there's no way you could do it. You had to learn how to build that team. You've had to learn how to attract those people in the first place. So there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen for that to be the case. And that's a really good example. You said at the beginning, people need to work on themselves. That's the biggest one. They'll learn on themselves, they'll do the learning, but it's not just doing the learning. They actually put into action what they've learned. So they're good at the application, they're good at the execution of the stuff they've learned. And that's critical.
Hmm. Where would a business owner look to hire, as far as what position should a business owner look? Let's just say a technician who service houses, and he's working full time now. So he's got plenty of work for full time work, steady work. Um, and he serviced residential commercial properties, let's just say. Where would be a good place for him to start to step out of the everyday?
He needs to replace his work. He needs to replace someone that can do the job as good as him or her. These days, you've got a lot of people that are female in that kind of business.
Hmm.
They've got to replace themselves first. They've got to get that work covered. If you don't get that work covered, you're going to forever stay trapped
Yeah.
because you can't learn without creating space. So they need to
Mm.
create space. So yeah, get someone to do that work so they can start learning the stuff they need to learn to start being able to structure and grow the business to that next level.
And to lead into that, business owners are busy all day long. Like they're either busy, doing getting the job done, or they are busy looking for more work or trying to keep that pipeline going. And I've seen where maybe they'll be project oriented, so they'll be very busy getting a project done and all the stress and resource that that takes and all the work and time. And then once that's over, they're enjoying the profit, enjoying the payment that they just made. But now we got to look for more, so that that pipeline shuts off, and then we got to start up again and be looking for work again. What's the difference you would say between being busy and actually moving the business forward?
See, what you are describing is when an owner's doing stupid shit. They're not doing the CEO role, they're doing the technician role. See, as you're growing the business, you need to identify those seats. Jim Collins talks about it, like the seats in a business. So if you're £1 million, 1 million turnover business, you need to decide what the seats in that business look like. At 2 million, what are the seats? At 5 million, what are the seats? At 10 million, what are the seats? And you need to make sure you've got the right people in the right seats doing the right things right. It's as simple as that. And you need to make sure that you're working on the structure. You need to make sure that you've got people coming into the business to to keep the wheels spinning and keep it growing. And it goes back to founder dependency. If the founder's always jumping in, it's going to be like a seesaw effect. Get the work, do the work, get the work, do the work. You can't scale that. Just scaling madness because you're going to have periods where actually you're going to have a payroll you need to make, but you don't have the revenue coming in. I mean, that's just like stupid. So what you've got to do is you've got to make sure that over a period of time, you're taking yourself out of all the seats so that you can actually focus on the bigger picture. And it's a bit like, I mean, you've just had the World Cup. I'm sure some of your listeners had followed like football. Yeah, not soccer, football.
Oh,
What do you, I had to correct it there. I mean, you know, that misdemeanor. Around the world, we all call it football apart from one country that calls it soccer.
yeah.
However, what happens is it's a bit like having a manager on the pitch. So it's not uncommon in lower league, like sort of clubs, where you will have a player manager. Where you, if you're still on the pitch, you haven't got the full picture of the game because you're consumed by the tactics here and now. You need to get yourself off the pitch. The sooner you can, as a founder, get yourself off the pitch, you can start working on strategy, not execution. And too often, founders spend very little time on sort of strategy and most of their time in execution under the guise, oh, I'm being strategic about it. No, you're not. You're just
Hmm.
executing. You just put a
Yeah.
beautiful veneer on it so you don't feel so bad for yourself.
Yeah. Or they feel that they've got to be just watching over the employees the whole time, not letting them do their job because the fear of they're going to steal or they're not going to do it right.
And that is a hiring problem.
Yeah.
That's a hiring problem. When you have to micromanage everybody, you've hired badly. So maybe
Hmm.
it's time to get rid of the family member.
Exactly. I love it. Man, tell me about your book. Your new book just came out. Your Business Sucks. I know it's available on Amazon.
It covers everything we've discussed today, to be honest with you. You see, it's because it is. When you look at where most founders are stuck in the hamster wheel trap. They get themselves into a position where the business is still too dependent on them. And for those of you that have made it out of the hamster wheel trap, congratulations. But most people, they are just constantly running to cover their expenses. Don't get me wrong, there are some businesses out there that make money. They do make money and they've got a very good lifestyle. But that lifestyle comes at a cost because they've built themselves a prison, not a business. And it really is talks about how you get onto the hamster wheel, but more importantly, as a founder, what needs to happen to get off the hamster wheel trap and what you can do to get yourself out of that situation. Because it's not about founder dependency. If you've got, I mean, if you got a business that is right now heavily dependent on the founder, you're never going to sell it for a lot of money because a good buyer, a smart buyer, is going to discount the living daylights out of your business.
Hmm. At that point, it's just book a business, right?
If
If
you're
that.
lucky, if
Yeah.
you're lucky, you know, in today's day and age, when you can really market well, there's some businesses out there that don't even need that book of business because they really know the people that are shopping with their competitor. They just market and go after them direct.
Yeah. And take them out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what happens. So yeah, the
Mhm.
book explores that, and it's a
Yeah.
business fable.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that hamster wheel trap. That's very visual. I could see that. And man, you put yourself in there real quick of just doing, 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 and not being any better, not changing yourself, not taking accountability for where you're at now. Because a lot of times, if you've been doing it for 20 years, that's a shot at your pride too.
Yeah, but Jonathan, people don't realize it.
Yeah.
They don't. It's basically unconscious. It's not like they wake up deliberately and say, "Do you know what, I want to be trapped." It's just that they set the trap from day one without realizing it.
Yeah.
And when they did it, unfortunately, that trap, it didn't have a name.
Yeah.
It was just called business.
That reminds me. So we're in San Diego. We have the food scene is great here. We think that we have the best food, and we've got all sorts of variety. We're a very diverse area. Maybe for our nice weather or being a Navy town, I'm not sure, but a lot of different cultures. And I could see where someone starts a restaurant specifically very good, and they are the restaurant. You know them, and then they work the restaurant for 30, 40 years, and they pass on, and then the restaurant dies out. And that's all because I had to do it all, and nobody could cook the way I cook or knew how to put the salt and pepper in the way I put it in.
Because they knew how to cook, but they never learned how to run a business.
Absolutely. So that's the difference between a kitchen and a restaurant, I guess.
And they
Wow,
never
powerful.
transitioned.
Powerful. And then now you see, I mean, I was thinking of a specific situation. Now you see the grandchildren trying to pick it up because, wow, there was this big business or opportunity. And, they're really struggling to get it back going again.
And do you know why that is? Because they can neither cook or run a business.
One question on leadership. What's one thing every business owner could do this week? Something practical that would immediately make them a better leader.
Learn, read a book, read or
Mm,
listen to a book.
love it.
Simple as. You can't do what you don't know.
Yeah.
I love the saying, God made man in his image. Well, if God made man in his image, you created your business in your image. So everything that's happening in your business today is down to you, nobody else. And if you do not like what you see in the mirror, you better start skilling up because nothing's going to
Yeah.
change otherwise.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. As we come to the kind of latter part of the podcast, I'd like to ask you some rapid fire questions. So,
Fire away.
all right, here we go. Best business book you've ever read?
There is no such thing as the best business book I've ever read. There are great businesses, there are great business books at the right time. That's the most important thing. You need to make sure that when you read a book, it's relevant for where you are in your current business journey. I'll give you a great example. When a coach first becomes a coach and actually starts their coaching business, guess what they should be reading? Books around marketing because they need to build their client base. And I've seen coaches say, oh, no, no, you need to read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If I ever caught a new coach reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I'd beat them with a book.
Smack 'em.
Make sure you choose the right book at the right time. And there's some greats out there. So I love Jim Collins, Good to Great. I love Vern Harnish, Scaling Up. But you take Scaling Up, you give that to a solopreneur, Well, it's a useless book because it has no
Yeah.
relevance to them. So sorry, I can't answer the question the way you want it. But actually, what's the best business book out there that I've ever read? Your Business Sucks.
Let's go. That was a slow pitch. That's from baseball, by the way. Love it. Yeah, I guess a great book at at the wrong time is not a great book.
100%.
Yep. Love it. Okay. Morning routine or one daily habit that you will never skip.
Waking up at 4:30 in the morning.
Love
I
it.
wake up without fail. Don't even use an alarm. My body clock is set for 4:30. I start work at 5 a.m. every single day. Keeps me focused, keeps me disciplined.
Right on. My grandmother used to say, healthy, wealthy, and wise, early to bed, early to rise.
And I'm in bed by 8 o'clock every single day.
One business myth you'd love to eliminate.
That a business needs to be founder dependent. I think that's probably the biggest myth, that a business needs to rely on the founder. The only reason it relies on the founder is because the founder has orchestrated that way. They've trained the business to rely on them, and that's it. It's a habit that they need to break.
I wish it wouldn't be allowed to call it a business until it's more than one.
But it isn't, though, a business. That's the
Right.
whole point. And I'll tell you why. You can abuse your body up to the age of around 45. Yeah, go drinking, do all that stupid shit that people do when they're younger. But at 45 onwards, unfortunately, things in your body do start to break. It sucks. It really does. It's not great. And what I've noticed, once you get to the age of 50, business owners are susceptible, not so much to a heart attack, but what's more lethal than a heart attack is a stroke. Because if you've known anyone to have a stroke, it can very often impair your speech, impair your vision, your sort of cognitive ability to reason is massively reduced, and also your motor neuron skills are also very often, on a temporary basis, diminished. And recovery from a stroke can be a month up to 3 or 4 months. Now, if I said to most people on this podcast today, if you were hit with a stroke, God forbid, let's hope that never happens, but let's say you got hit with a stroke and you couldn't speak and you couldn't communicate with your customers, your suppliers, anyone for about 6 to 8 weeks, when you went back into your business and be truthful with yourself, would you have a business to go back to?
Basically, they work for themselves. Instead of calling it a business, you should say you work for yourself. Or for some
No, and I
people.
don't even think they work for themselves. That's the worst thing about it. I think they work for the entity that they created.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to take a vacation, they first go to the business. Can I afford to take a vacation? Can I afford the time to take a vacation? Every decision they make, they consult the business first. Can the business allow me to do that? Who's working for
Yeah.
who?
Yeah. And on the terms of vacation, I remember I either had, when I ran my own business, I either had the money to go on the vacation, but no time, or I had the time, but I had no money. So we stayed right where we were in the hamster wheel.
Yes, it's a
Right.
horrible thing, the hamster wheel. Wherever I
Yeah.
got it, there we are, a little hamster wheel. Nice little chap on the hamster wheel.
Oh, yeah. All right. Real serious question. Coffee or tea?
Neither. Only caffeine I would have will be Pepsi Max once a day.
Oh, boy.
Look, I will have tea, but I tend to have tea when I'm not feeling so great. So if I need to boost my immune system or whatever, then I go for the herbal teas just on a recovery basis.
Pepsi Max. Is that like the zero, the Coke Zero of Pepsi?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
Nice.
don't really drink it that much, to be fair.
What's the one question I should have asked you today that I didn't ask?
Probably what's the consequence for entrepreneurs that never make it off the hamster wheel trap?
Mm.
Because a lot of people never think exit. They think exit one day. And the biggest problem is often exit hits an entrepreneur, a founder, at the worst possible time. And it's never a voluntary exit, it's a forced exit. And it's very much around probably health. There's two reasons why there's a forced exit. The health of the founder deteriorates to the point they need to exit it, or they have a mental breakdown because they've burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
You're never gonna live your dreams if you have a forced exit. I really wish their founders start thinking about exit 5 years out and they start structuring it the right way, because at the end of the day, you can work 20, 30 years in your business, if that's what you want to call it. However, you can do all of that. When you go to sell a business, you can only ever sell it once. So surely it makes sense. If you spend 30 years working in your business, you spend 5 years getting your business to be sold for the highest possible premium.
Hmm. On your terms, on the at the time frame that you decide.
If it's on your terms, your time frame and everything, you're in control. Most business sales are not in the control of the founder. They're in
Mm.
control of the buyer.
And the business started with, I want to leave something for my family. I want to leave a legacy. I want my kids to run this business, when they get of age. And man, like that's the last thing they wanted.
Exactly. Number one, very often they pass down the poison chalice. So they bestow upon their kids their miserable life that they've
Mhm.
had for 30 years. But secondly, why don't they ask the kids what do they want? Why make the assumption I'm going to want my kids to do this? It's your dream, not theirs.
Yep. And it's your demise.
Yeah, there are going to be kids that want to take over the family business, but don't put them under pressure to take it over. Let them have their dreams. If their dream is to take over the family business, so be it. Don't make your reality their reality.
Especially something that sucks.
I mean, that's the worst. I mean, you must really hate your kids. My business
Yeah.
sucks, so let me give you something as a parting gift so you can hate me forever.
You will never forget me. Man, this has been great. I really enjoyed this time together, and I respect you so much because you are my coach's coach, and it's such an honor for me to have you on here and begin to just give hope to the business owners out there that you don't have to be in the struggle all the time. There are new struggles. There are new struggles at different levels that you can conquer, and we are here to help you. Whether that's through coaching, whether that's through mentorship, or just as simple as listen to this podcast, listen to our other episodes, or reading books, especially the book that you have recently authored. So just I think that hope for the business owners is such a valuable tool.
And you know what? You've just said something really important there. You don't have to struggle, but most people choose to struggle.
They know no other way. There isn't another way until somebody's there.
You know what? 30 years ago, there was no internet, there was no information. You had to go to a library. There was no Amazon. You
Hmm.
look at today, the amount of free information out there around business is huge. Do you know? Start investing in yourself. Spend 2 hours a day, or even 1 hour a day, learning about business. Get yourself into a habit of reading one business book a month. And then when you get good at that, and you don't have to read, you can listen, which is also great. Then go down to one every 3 weeks, and one every 2 weeks, and once a week. Can you imagine reading one business book a week for 3 years? That's 150 business books. Your knowledge, your understanding will be so, so strong. Your decision making will be so clear. After that period, there's no way your reality would be what it is today.
Absolutely true. It's all there. It's all available. You just got to take the next step. You got to step forward, step up, level up. Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that, man. This has been great. And if you would allow, we'll have to do it again.
It will be an absolute pleasure. Listen, thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you so much, Peter. And if you would like to have your copy of this book, there will be a description below where you can obtain that. It's just as easy as going on Amazon and finding it. And it's time that you start to take steps forward and better your business.
And the one thing I'd say about that, currently the Kindle edition of the book is 99 cents only. You don't even need a Kindle to read it. You just need to download the Kindle app on any digital device and you can read it. And I've done that so that no business owner has an excuse not to have access to the book. But it ain't going to last forever. So grab your copy while you can.
Awesome. I love it. Everybody out there listening to the sound of my voice, grab some version of this book. You will not be disappointed. Well, thank you for being on the Business Freedom Podcast today.
Thank you so much.